Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list is actually going to be a top 20. This week I'll do numbers 20 through 11, and next week I'll do numbers 10 through 1. Now, this week's list and next week's list are going to be the top 20 or 10, however you want to look at it, large size, inexpensive notes. Evan Block, a subscriber of mine, suggested this, so thank you, Evan. And I went through my safety deposit box and I pulled out some of the notes that I purchased basically for the bare minimum. So I know that I've got very little invested in these. I say little just in comparison to other things. Now, some of these notes don't book out as the cheapest notes, but the price I paid for them makes them worthy of being on this list. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But anyway, let's get this started with the top 20 cheapest large size notes. Now, for number 20, I actually have two of them. And what I've got here, these are obsolete banknotes. Now, my obsolete banknotes, there's probably a whole world dedicated to obsolete banknotes. I don't have a whole lot of info on them because there are so many different obsolete banks. Before the Federal Reserve got into printing money, each individual bank would print their own notes, which means each individual bank guaranteed their notes, and they could print any amount they wanted, they could print any denomination they wanted. And I was always fascinated by $3 bills. I just found it very interesting that a $3 bill actually existed. Now, the reason this didn't work out is banks would end up going under, but their currency would still be circulating. And when their currency is circulating and there's nothing to back it, nobody would know the difference. So people are passing notes that are worthless. You can see the need for the Federal Reserve to step in and start regulating cash, especially when businesses start saving up this money and then they go to redeem it at the bank that no longer exists. Anyway, I have two $3 bills here. These are both from sometime around the 1850s. I don't have a book, like I said. I don't have a book for the values of these, but I picked up both of these for probably $40 to $50 a piece. Neither one of them have anything on the back, just the overprint of the three. And they are interesting because they are hand-signed. And if you look here, I think they're hand numbered as well. Like I said, they're not in the greatest of shape, but they are legitimate $3 bills. So I found these interesting. So I definitely wanted to put those on my large size inexpensive list. That's number 20. Number 19, another large size note you can get. This is also an obsolete banknote, but what makes this one different is this one was never issued. If you look at the bottom, there are no signatures. There is no date written. There is no serial number written. So this was an unissued note. Now, it's every bit as cool as the issued version. The only thing is, this never being issued is probably going to be in excellent, excellent shape. This particular one is. Now, the other catch with these is since they weren't issued, they weren't numbered, so there is no telling how many of these are actually out there. Being that they weren't issued, there could be thousands of these sitting in safes, or there could have been at the time. And that just makes it extremely difficult to put a value on these. Now, they're every bit as beautiful as the issued obsolete notes, like I said, but trying to determine a value is a little trickier. This one I think I probably paid probably $10 for, just because it's unissued and there's not a whole lot of information to go with these particular notes. So yeah, definitely a large size note, definitely an old note, definitely a cheap note, definitely an inexpensive note to add to your collection. Number 19. Those are called remainder notes. Okay, when they're unissued, they're known as remainders. So that would be that remainder. Number 17. Number 17, a slightly newer note. Those are all from the 1840s, 1850s. Here's one from the 1860s. This is a $10 Confederate States of America note. Now, Confederate notes, CSAs, these are pretty interesting. They're printed on rice paper, so the paper itself is really thin. There were a lot of counterfeits. The Union printed a bunch of Confederate money to try to ruin their economy. They were pretty much doing that on their own, so it didn't really make that big of a difference. But Confederate notes from the Civil War are extremely interesting. When you do get the real ones, they are hand numbered, they are hand signed. The things you're going to notice about these is that the ink has iron in it, which gives it this slight orange effect as it rusts over the centuries. So that's one way to tell if it's a legitimate note or not. If you have a note where the ink here matches the ink here, then you got to start asking some questions. These are fairly inexpensive. The backs are pretty interesting as well. They look like play money. These are fairly inexpensive as well. This particular one, I think you can probably find somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 bucks. You know, so I mean, yeah, large size note, definitely a piece of history, definitely affordable. Inexpensive note, that is number 18. 2019-18. Number 17. This should be a really expensive note, but because of the condition I got it in, I got it for a great price. This particular note is an 1862 $5 bill. 1862 $5 bill was the first note actually printed by the federal government. This particular one, if I remember right, is a legal tender. They did make an 1861 demand note, but that wasn't exactly money. That was payable on demand. That was more or less like a check, where this was designed to be money. This is a legal tender, $5, 1862. Like I said, the first note issued by our government for the purpose of spending. Now you can see that there's a small little chunk missing here, serious crease down the middle, hole in it there, little chunk over here. It is heavily weathered, heavily wrinkled. Here's the back, you can see, but that doesn't change the fact of what this actually is. Like I said, it is one of the first notes ever produced. So with that kind of provenance, yeah, it's worth picking up one of these. It's worth having one just to have. Now, in a VG8, this note grades out at around 400 bucks. It goes a lot higher than that. Believe me, it goes a lot higher than that when it's in better shape. But I didn't really want to fork out $400 for this particular note. I had my eyes on other things, and I was able to get this note in this raggedy shape for somewhere around 150 bucks. So that's not bad, and now I can cross it off my list. A lot of people say that, well, I guess I am a typeset collector. I try to collect one of everything. So I've gotten one of these, I can check it off my list, and I can move on to bigger and better things. That's number 17, 2019, 18, 17. Number 16 on the list. From 1923, it's a silver certificate. This is the horse blanket, 1923 horse blanket. One of the most common large size notes you're going to find. It is the most recent large size note. In 1928, we moved to the small size notes. So 1923, this was the last large size note, and this one is the last large size silver certificate. The horse blanket, as you can see here, pretty familiar looking. It's very familiar looking. The difference, of course, would be the size. These being large size notes, it is about a third bigger than the average note that you're used to having. This particular one's an alternator too, 18, 16, 10, 14. You've got one alternating every other one, so that's kind of neat. But yeah, these, you definitely should have one of these in your collection. Like I said, it is fairly iconic, being a recognizable note, but being of the large size. And these you can find starting out at around 40 bucks, and they go up from there. So definitely an affordable note to add. That is number 16, 2019, 18, 17, 16. Number 15. This is an 1914 Federal Reserve note. This is a Federal Reserve $5 bill, and pretty classic looking note, pretty classic. From 1914, the $5 bill. Take a look at the back. Interesting stuff that's back there. Now, this $5 note, you know, it wasn't a note that I was trying to hunt down, but I happened to spot it, and it happened to be at a good price, so I picked it up. Now I don't have to worry about it. Like I said, I try to get one of everything. This particular note is a Kansas City note. You can see it's got J10 either way. You know, 10J, that's Kansas City, Missouri. And Kansas City is usually one of the tougher notes to get, just because they don't print as many as, say, San Francisco or New York or Chicago. So I saw this one, and it was in decent shape. Now you can find these starting in the $50 range, $50 to $65 range. So that definitely makes it an affordable note to get. A large size note under 100 bucks, even in decent shape, you can still get it pretty good. So that's number 15 on my list. Number 14. From the same series, the 1914, this is a $10 note. Now, you would think the $10 bill would be at least twice as much as the $5 bill, but that's where you'd be wrong. The $10 note from the 1914 set take a quick peek at the back of this one too. Yeah, it's kind of neat how you got farming and you've got agriculture and you've got industry on the back represented there. Now, the $10 note, like I said, you would think would be twice as much as the $5 note because 10 is twice as much as 5. But you would be wrong. You can actually own one of the $10 Blue Seal notes like this for about $10 more than the $5 note. The $5 note you can expect to find for as little as 65 bucks. This $10 note you can find for as little as 75. So yeah, all things considered, very affordable. So that is number 14. Now, I did stress Blue Seal for a reason, because number 13 on my list would be the Red Seal. Now, the Red Seal $10 notes are extremely rare. The Red Seal $10 notes can demand quite the premium, and you can tell by this particular one, it's been torn, retaped. I don't have to point out all the damage on this note. It is pretty scary. But I have this one, and except for the seal, it's virtually identical. The backs, the fronts, they're pretty much the same. The only difference is this is a Blue Seal, this is a Red Seal. What do I need two of these for? That was my argument to myself. Now, these Red Seal notes, these can be very expensive. These will start out around $275. But I happen to see this one, and like I said, cross it off the list. I picked up this note for like 50 bucks. So yeah, like I said, in VG8, you're talking 275. I figured spending $50 on this note, okay, it's still worth 10 no matter what. I will risk the additional 40 just to add it to my collection. So that is number 13 on my list. Nope, that's number 12 on, I don't know, 13. That's number 13. Number 12. Number 12 on my list is a little newer. This one is from 1917. 1917 $1 legal tender. Now, legal tender notes are known as United States notes, and this one just says on the top, this note is a legal tender for $1, and it does say United States note on the back. So when you see United States note, when you see legal tender, those are interchangeable. They're the same thing. Legal tenders means that there is a law passed allowing allowing the government to print X amount of dollars. That is the legal portion of legal tender. That law was repealed in 1998, if I recall. So technically that means this is no longer spendable. Red Seals would not be worth anything because the law that made them valuable no longer applies. But people will still spend them. And I would gladly give you face value for just about any Red Seal you have. Anyway, 1917 means that this is a large size note, so you're most certainly not going to find this in circulation. This particular note, 1917 $1 Red Seal, I like the pattern on the back there. That's pretty cool. This particular note, though, you're going to be able to find starting out around $80. So yeah, you can pay a lot more for it, of course, based on condition, but starting price about $80. So that's not too bad for a large size note. And number 11, last note for this week, from the same year, it is the $2 note, 1917 $2 legal tender. Once again, you've got legal tender on the top, you've got United States note on the back. They are interchangeable. Now, with $2 notes, you're going to run into this a lot. You can see right here that the corner's been torn off, and that had to do with bad luck. People believe $2 bills were bad luck. Why? There's all kinds of reasons. A $2 bill basically exists because of horse racing. Horse racing, they wanted the minimum bet to be $2 to keep out the riffraff. So in 1862, they made a $2 bill to keep the riffraff out of the horse tracks, prevent them from gambling, because $2 was the amount you'd have to bet. And that's funny because here we are 170 years later, and the minimum bet is now 10 cents. So much for keeping the riffraff out. Anyway, $2 were believed to be cursed or bad luck or whatever the case was. So what people would do is when they would get a $2 bill, they would tear the corner off. And it was said that you'd tear the corner off and spend the note. And when the next person received the note, they would tear a corner off. And when the next person, they would tear a corner off. And when that fourth person finally tore the fourth corner off, that would remove the bad luck from all those who have handled it. So that is why you see so many $2 bills that have that corner torn. This $2 bill you can find for as little as $75 in respectable shape. I mean, if you want a good one, you're going to pay up for it, of course. But to get one in your collection, you're talking about $75. Take a quick peek at the back. You've got, what do they call this? Oyster? Something like that. You know. But anyway, that is number 11 on my list. Stay tuned for next week when I cover number 10 through number 1 on large size notes. How should I put that? I don't really want to say cheap. Top 10 affordable large size notes, I guess is the good way to put it. I want to say thank you to Evan for making the suggestion. When he said it, I liked the idea. I ran into my box at the bank right away and pulled out a couple notes, and before you know it, I had 16. So I decided, well, let's see if I can't find 4 more, and ended up coming with 21. So that's how I got the 2 in the number 20 spot. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. I love reading all your comments. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you again next week.